So, first of all then, I'm just going to do a little activity with you which does not involve computers, and just some clues for things that I want you to ask me. So here, I've got a picture of a famous person, and you've got to ask me questions to try and work out who this person is. We're doing this speakings, okay, on speaking mode. So, here are some things you can think about. Is this character...
One advantage of having the prompts displayed in this way is that it's a time saver. It can take some time for the teacher to elicit all the different elements as prompts, and so it may be just more efficient to have them already available, although the teacher would still need to check what the meaning of the prompts are. Another point to raise is that while the instructions given in this case seem to be understood by the students, the teacher does have the advantage of working with relatively high-level students, and actually his level of instructions for a lower level group for which this particular activity would be more appropriate, those instructions are really rather complex, and he would need to, I think, engage in more of a demonstration mode rather than trying to explain the actual process of the activity.
Has this character done? You can use these to ask me the questions, and here are some other things you can ask about. Human? A real person? Any other things you can think of?
Female.
Okay, male, female, male, gender neutral. Okay, famous for, involved in, involved with. Okay. Oops. So those are some questions you can ask. So over to you. You can ask me some questions.
Is this character a female?
No, this character is not a female.
Is this character Chinese?
No, this character is not Chinese.
Is this character British?
Yes.
Is it alive? Alive or not?
No, not alive.
Is it scientist?
Yes, he is. Newton, like me. No, it's not Isaac Newton, no. Scientist.
Is this character once be a teacher in Oxford or Cambridge University?
I'm not sure if he may have been. I may have been, but I'm not actually sure. But he was definitely involved with one of those two places. Yes, he was. Stephen Hawking. Okay. Right. Now, what I'm going to do is give you each a picture. Okay? You're going to keep this picture secret. Don't show anyone. If you don't know who the person is, you can ask me and I'll give you another one. Okay? Now, while I'm doing this, can you log onto your chat and can you go into your chat room number? I'll put those back on for you. So there's your chat room number, okay? So go find your chat room number in WhatsApp, all right? You should have a chat room number in WhatsApp. You don't really need to know. All you need to do is go into the chat room and she will be there waiting for you. You should have chat rooms, numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 within WhatsApp, yeah? So you should be able to see. In WhatsApp, can you see down the side here? Class A, Group 6, Group 8, Group 1, okay? So this relates to your own group. Find your group and go into it. Okay? Wait a minute, so make sure you're in your group. You in? So now, what I want you to do is start typing yes/no questions to your partner and find out the identity of your partner's picture. Okay? Just like you did speaking with me, but find out the identity.
So there are a couple of issues here relating to computer room management and technology setup, and also classroom instructions. Again, starting with classroom instructions, one of the issues here is that the instructions are really rather complex for a lower level group, and the teacher can get away with the instruction here because the students are higher level. So some thought needs to be given as to how instructions can be given for this texting activity at low levels. And it seems to me that the best way to do this would be to actually demonstrate the texting activity itself using the screen projection and with a volunteer student. But more importantly than that, I think, is the order of setup. And what I mean by that is that the students are not actually ready to go into the correct chat room. They're not familiar with the idea of chat room number, and that has not really been focused upon in sufficient detail at the beginning of the class. So what that means is that it is needed to be done now. The students have to go into their respective chat rooms now, but they don't really quite understand what the chat room number is and what the pairings are. So this then impedes the flow of the technique and of the classroom process. And so this is something to think about as you're setting up technology-based activities.
Identity of your partner's picture by texting yes/no questions.
We can see here that the activity appears to be working well. The students understand what they are doing, and they are to some extent using some of the models originally presented on the PowerPoint. It's important to see this stage in the context of the subsequent stages of the lesson, and what this activity is doing is equipping the learners with ideas which they can subsequently use in a similar controlled speaking activity. It reduces pressure on them, it reduces anxiety, they have more thinking time, more time to get their ideas together, which will hopefully kind of preload the contents that they can then use in the following speaking activity.
What we're going to do in a moment is just go back through our own texts and see if we can find any grammar problems in the questions. Now, I know many of you have been writing just in short single words, which is fine for text. But you can now do two things. You can go through your texts and check for any grammar errors, or you can look at single words and just try to think how you would make them into proper questions, okay, if you wanted to make them grammatically full, okay? So can you do that in a moment?
From a classroom management and classroom instructions perspective, I think there is too much teacher talking time here in terms of giving the instructions. I think the instructions could be said more succinctly and more clearly, especially for lower level students.
So just before we do that, I hope Minuati and Haotong do not mind this, but here we have part of the text from their text chain. Okay, so what I'd like you to just quickly is go through this text chain, and can you identify any errors in this text chain? Any grammatical errors? Let's have a look. Which is your picture? Okay, is your picture has a man? So how can we correct that? Is your picture has a man? Is your character a man? Is your character a man? That's one way to say it, yeah? Is your character a man? Another way? Does your picture have a man? Hold on a minute. Does your picture have a man? Probably we'd add something at the end of that. It's okay, that. In it. Does your picture have a man in it? Is there a man
In your picture.
in the picture? Is there a man in the picture? Any other?
Is it a man?
Is it a man? You could say that, yeah. Is it a man?
A man.
Have you got a man? You could say that. Quite a few things. Okay, fine.
The students are making useful suggestions as to how to correct this identified error. One problem, though, is that the computer room itself leaves little space for actually writing up these suggested corrections on a board. There is a flip chart which the teacher is not using and which arguably he should have used. These good suggestions that the students make are simply left in spoken mode, and there's no written model of them for retention. This to me is a fundamental piece of technique when dealing with error correction, that any good models that students suggest should be presented visually for the rest of the class to be able to remember.
So what I'd like you to do now, similar thing with your own texts, actually looking at it, go through and now, still using the text, chat to your partner to see if you can identify any problems, and you can text them to say, oh, this expression is a problem, I think it should be. So we're doing now correction using the texts, okay, if you can find any. Just a couple of minutes on this.
An issue of key significance in technology and language teaching, and particularly this topic of texting or chat, is the notion of digital literacies. Clearly, the ability to engage in texting or in chat is a significant language skill. The ability to do it appropriately in a way that is appropriate to context. Now, in this particular sequence, the teacher is asking the students to correct their text or even expand single words into full grammatical forms. We have to ask why the teacher is doing this at this stage. The aim is clearly not associated with developing the digital literacy of informal texting, because in informal texting, the type of grammar, indeed if there is any real grammar in informal texting, is very different from what the teacher is trying to do here. So it's important to emphasize that what is happening here has very little to do with the digital literacy of texting, and it has much more to do with the use of basic student data as a platform for the students themselves to engage in peer correction, thereby pushing forward their own personal grammatical complexities, and hopefully doing this in a peer correction and non-pressured way may help them to internalize the corrections they make and utilize those restructured grammatical forms in the subsequent speaking stage of the lesson. So this activity is not associated with digital literacy, it's more associated with taking forward grammatical competence.
Right, okay, can you stop there? That's fine for now. We're not going to do a feedback on that, but maybe you can later on look back at those in a little bit more detail. So here's a couple of the errors we picked up here. Is there a man in your picture? Does your picture have a man? Is it a man? Those are some of the things we talked about. So now, I've just given you another picture which you must keep secret. First of all, check that you know the person. If you don't know the person, then put your hands up, I'll give you a different picture. Okay, fine. Right. So now what I want you to do is work with the person sitting next to you. Okay? Keep your picture completely secret. They must not see your picture. And now we are going to do the same activity, but this time speaking. Okay? So this time we're going to do speaking practice on the same activity. So we've got 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and we'll have 3 here. Can you go and join? So we've got a group of 3 at the end. Okay? Keep your picture secret, so it's over to you, the same activity, but speaking this time. And as you are doing it, it's very important, could you record the conversation? Okay? So both of your phones, could you record the conversation? So make sure your recording is working first.
Not really.
So what we see here is a two-phase approach to speaking skills and the practice of speaking skills in the classroom, where first of all a written model using texting is used, and that provides a rehearsal for a subsequent parallel and very similar activity which is done in spoken mode. Some research suggests that doing it in this two-approach way is beneficial because the students have rehearsal or thinking time to begin with, and then that's provided via the written activity, the texting activity. They have time to take in and think about ideas for, in this case, description. and then subsequently there is less pressure and less anxiety on them when it comes to engaging in the speaking activity.
Okay, fine. Let's stop there. You can go back, and one thing for homework is, what I'd like you to do is listen to your dialogue, use it as a dictation, and write it out, and then identify any errors in what you hear, okay? But to give you an example of that, I've got two very kind volunteers. So let's just see. Now, I don't know if this is perfect or whether there are some errors with it. But let's just have a listen here.
Female?
Bit different to
Is
hear.
the character a human?
Yes.
First question was, is your character female? That's okay. Second question is your character human? I think that was okay.
So the audio-based peer correction demonstrates another facet of the advantage of mobile assisted language learning, in that students are able to either peer correct their own or their partner's work, and this is immediately available to them by having immediate access to the mobile phones. This is able to be done in aural or audio form simply because of the recording facility, and it can be done at learners' own pace so that they can stop and pause where and when they want to and make their own autonomous decisions as to what they focus on. So to that extent, it's also helping to promote learner autonomy. Whether this should be done within the actual timetable, classroom time, or whether it could be done in a flipped learning or blended learning scenario whereby the students do it for homework and report back on it, is an open question. The other point here is how you do feedback on it from a generic classroom point of view. And you'll see here that the way I've done this is by to also record one of the partners with their permission and use that as a basis for plenary feedback, but it's only based on one partner, one pair doing the activity.
Is she? So she's a female?
Yeah.
You hear that?
She's a female.
She's a female? Well, hold on. She's a female. What kind of intonation? Up or down? Up. She's a female? It's okay. Or the correct grammar form is she a female? Okay, good. Right, we'll stop there.
So this video commentary has tried to show a number of things. Firstly, it's discussed the use of PowerPoint for providing discussion prompts ahead of a short speaking activity. Secondly, it's looked at computer room management issues with particular reference to consideration of demonstration and classroom instructions, and also concerning how to sequence the setup of chat rooms and when instructions for chat rooms and chat room organisation should be provided. It's looked at the role of texting as a preparation for speaking practice. It's looked at the value or the role of peer correction, both in written and audio mode, and looked at the place of self-correction both in and out of the classroom and implications of that for any organisation of blended learning.